Hey, happy Wednesday, everyone. Hope you are doing well. It's the middle of the week. Hope you're having a good week. Hope everything is working out for you, and hope that you can end this week just as well. And this is In the Raw, unscripted, unpracticed, unedited conversation. We've been talking about fresh start. What does it mean to have a fresh start? We've been basing it on Isaiah and his calling, how God called him to have a fresh start in his life. And so we have been talking about what we need to do to have a fresh start, things that we need to make sure happen so that we may have a fresh start. And today we're going to talk about the fourth one. So just to review, we've been talking about the first one was identify the pain. We need to identify the pain that we are experiencing so that we may have a fresh start. Everybody has pain. We've all lived through pain. Then the second thing was recognize that it's all about God. It's not about us. It's not about us. It's about God. Everything that happens, everything that revolves around our lives is about Him, not about us. The third thing we talked about in the last video was we need to reveal the truth about ourselves. We need to be honest with ourselves. We need to be truthful with ourselves, right? We need to come clean, in other words, if we're going to have a fresh start. And number four, the fourth thing we need to do to have a fresh start is release the past. We need to release the past. Obviously, we all have something ugly about our lives. We have a past that we're not proud of necessarily. We've all done things that we regret. We've all done things that we are embarrassed about, that we don't talk about, right? Things that have happened in our lives that we've been part of, that we've seen, that we've done, that we've said. And so we all have a past, right? And what do those regrets bring? Those regrets bring shame and embarrassment and anger also, right? And also grief and resentment. So all these things, wow, shame, embarrassment, anger, grief, and resentment, right? And so, these regrets, are not fun, of course. They're not fun. And, we need to experience what Isaiah experienced in order to have that fresh start. And what did Isaiah experience? It said that the angel took a burning coal, and it says in verse 7, with it he touched my mouth and said, see, this has touched your lips. Your guilt is taken away, and your sin atoned for. Your sin has been paid for, in other words. Your sin is gone. And, God doesn't want us to live with regrets in our lives. And because of that, He's offered this incredible gift called forgiveness. And the good news is that once regrets, since regrets are inevitable, we can't avoid regrets. Forgiveness is available for all of us. So because we're going to have regrets, we have forgiveness also. Psalms 32 says, finally, I confess all my sins. This is David writing. I confess all my sins to you and stop trying to hide them. And you forgave me. Sometimes, and then he says, all my guilt is gone. Forgot to read that part. And, sometimes we try to hide things as if God is not going to know, as if God is not going to notice, right? And David here is saying, I confess all my sins, and I stopped trying to hide them. You forgave me. My guilt is gone. Can you imagine? And I'm sure, how David might have felt. I'm sure that you felt that way too before, right? When you were hiding something or you were keeping something from somebody important in your life, and then when you came clean and you said, this is, and you confessed, a weight is taken off of you. You feel like, wow, I can I can live again, And that's how David felt. And so God wants us to have this fresh start. And he says, all you have to do is confess. And you got to let go of whatever is bringing you down, whatever you did in the past. You have to let go of those things, right? And so here's the question. Remember, every step has a question. So here's the question for this. What am I holding on to? That's a question that you need to reflect on. You need to ask yourself, what am I holding on to? Am I holding on to regret of a failed relationship? Am I holding on to the regret of a wrong choice or wrong words or hurtful things I've done? Well, God forgives. And that's God's part. God says, I'm going to do my part. I'm going to forgive. But there's also a part that we need to make. And my part is to acknowledge and confess the wrong things that I've done. And then when I do that, I can receive God's forgiveness, and I can live a life that is guilt-free, right? And every time I have an issue in my life, I need to let go of it. As I move forward, that becomes part of the past. I need to let go of that past, right? Because as I said in the previous video, Jesus said, we will have afflictions in this world. As long as we live here, we're going to be having bad choices, and we're going to be doing things that we regret later. And as we move on, that stays in the past. We just got to let go of it. Let go of it and let God, let God's forgiveness come over us so that we may live without regrets. We may live guilt-free. All right. Well, I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, amazing rest of your week, and we will talk to you soon.